Welcome to Vision Plus, a program featuring a positive outlook, dealing with everyday situations of marriage, children, and business. Believing Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Teacher, author, speaker, delighting audiences from New York to Sacramento with a heart and message for the people today. Bonnie would like to remind you of the 800 number on the screen. Please feel free to call at any time throughout the broadcast and share your concerns. Leave your prayer request and someone will pray with you. And now, teacher, author, and speaker, Bonnie.
Last year I spent 4 months in Afghanistan tracking down bomb makers. That was an experience. On 9/12, I packed my bags because I was living in Athens, to fly to Beirut, where I spent some time after 9/11. That was an experience. And talking about all these different states, there's been a subject that I wanted to talk to a group, and I hope you'll let me just explore this with you. And that is, what makes a state? Yep. What makes a certain group of people have the right to have a state? This past Thursday night, I was at the Peace Valley Foundation. Has anyone heard of that? The Peace Valley Foundation is an association of Turkish Sufi Muslims. I don't know if you know about Sufi Muslims. They're the whirling dervishes. They're the ones that swirl around and around. And the reason they're doing that is because through their going around and around, they can get closer communion with God. They also do it through their art and their poetry. So they're not Sunni or Shia, they're Sufi, but they're very peaceful people, and they're very opening people. And going to their annual event this past week sounds like the start of a joke, because they'll have a Jewish rabbi, a Methodist pastor, and a Catholic priest, and then an imam come up and speak, and you're waiting for the punchline. But they really do. They try to bring all these groups together. But the one thing I sat there, and one thing that I've gotten more tolerant of people in some ways as I've gotten older, but I told my wife the other night, also the older I've gotten, instead of like a wine getting more mellow, I'm becoming more of a brawler and just really, really impatient with people. This man got up and he was talking about the wonders of Turkey. And he was talking about visiting there, and how his Turkish driver, what a wonderful man this was, and how he went up to the top of Mount Ararat, and you know how just great these people were. Then I got thinking about it, and I wanted to raise my question, but better judgment came over me. And I said, I wanted to say, how did that become Turkish? Does anybody know how Mount Ararat became Turkish? You know, the Holocaust we think of in the 1930s and 40s and out of Hitler's Holocaust was not the first Holocaust of the 20th century. The first Holocaust of the 20th century was in 1915. Does anybody know what happened then? The Armenians. The Turks butchered over 1 million Armenians.
Why?
Why? Ethnic cleansing.
Oh.
It was ethnic cleansing, just like the Holocaust of the later on in the century. And when they did the butchering of the Armenians, they took Mount Ararat. So if I'm an Armenian sitting there and I'm hearing this wonderful story of how great and peaceful Turkey is, and what a beautiful place Mount Ararat is, I'm thinking, you know what? My great-grandpa died because of that, and these peaceful people. So I'm a little cynical there. And then he shows a picture of Cappadocia, beautiful city of Cappadocia, and then beautiful city of Ephesus. Well, how did the Turks get that? They slaughtered the Greeks and ran them off. You know, so who does it belong to now? Should it go back to Armenia? Should it go back to, what is Asia Minor, what we call Asia Minor, should that go back to Greece? Who deserves a homeland? Should the American Indians have a homeland? And what's the big question in the world today as far as homeland? Israel and Palestine. Do the Palestinians deserve a homeland? What's your thoughts? Sorry. What are your thoughts? Palestinians deserve a homeland.
They deserve to be.
Weren't they there first?
No.
Nobody was there first. Everybody was there first. We can go back 3,500 years. Both groups were living there. So who deserves a homeland? I'm asking a question I don't know the answer to. Because I think in the situation with Palestine, I'm not, because I don't have a real religious connection, though I do go to church with Bonnie, and I consider myself a Christian, of course, but I don't, in that fight, I don't have a dog. So to me, the Palestinian situation, it's not a matter of right and wrong, it's a matter of right versus right. And that's when you have the most problems. It's when both sides have legitimate claims to the same place. And that's what you have in Palestine. Do the Palestinians have a homeland, deserve a homeland? Sure, just as much as any other ethnic group. Do we really want to follow that? If so, what are we going to do about the Kurds? Who's out there fighting for the Kurds? You know, the Kurds. Nobody else. Who cares about the Kurds? Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
They're too far away. We're not trusting.
They're too far away. What else?
They don't have any oil.
They don't have any oil. That could be one. There's no oil in Palestine either.
And Kurds have never been able to get along with anybody. They can't even get along with themselves throughout history.
Find me one group that likes the Palestinians.
Huh?
Find me one nationality that likes Palestinians.
But the Kurds are the same way. They're one of the oldest civilizations in existence, and they've never been able to get along with people.
They've never had, nor have the Palestinians. If you believe the Bible, you go back to when God talked to promised Abraham that Ishmael would be a great nation and a thorn in the side of everyone else. If you follow Ishmael all the way down, it becomes the Philistines. You know what the Philistines are? Well, in Arabic, there is no letter for P. It's an F. So when we say Palestine today, what we're saying is Philistine. Those are Philistines. So for 3,500 years, they have, by God's design, in my opinion, fought against everyone. And so do they deserve a homeland? It's a tough call, because I can tell you this. Last year I spent 2 weeks in Israel. And I spent 2 weeks training with the Shin Bet, the Israeli security agency. And it gave you a different view that you don't get in the Western media. You don't get in the American media. What I found in Israel were Palestinians and Jews living side by side, sharing meals together, watching each other's house when someone else was gone, when someone was out of town, kissing each other on the cheek in the marketplace. Has anybody ever seen that in the news?
No.
Never seen that in the news. If you go to the city of Acre, which is about 4,000 years old, up north of Haifa, if you go up there, I challenge you to find one Jew that doesn't like a Palestinian, or vice versa. If you go to the city, there's a city, I can't think of the name of it, between Jerusalem and Israel, on the road, in Tel Aviv, on the road between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv, there's a city there that's Palestinian that fought for Israeli independence in 1948. Those Palestinians have full rights as Israeli citizens. They have the same right as any Jew. They have representatives in the parliament, Knesset. I talked to some of them. He said, I am so proud to be an Israeli Palestinian. And you didn't see any of this. So at the end of it, we're thinking, what's going on here? Why are we getting this mixed? Why are we getting these mixed signals? What the Land for Peace deal? What's this all about? What do you think it's all about? I think there's a couple reasons.
Power.
Power. What else?
Pride.
Pride. Pride?
Land.
Land. What's a big thing in our lives? What thing are we looking at? We're overlooking here.
Religion.
Religion. Exactly. We've made it a religious issue. The Iranians have made their attacks against the West a religious issue over what? Over Palestine. Do you think for 1 second the Iranians care about Palestine? They are like dogs to an Iranian because they are a different religion, they are a different ethnic group. If they saw one on the street, they'd pass around it. They would not speak to them. Yet, in the name of righteousness, in the name of human rights and good for the Palestinian people, they carry out attacks against the West. It's an excuse. It's purely an excuse. What about what happens here in the U.S. if Israel gives up land for peace? What's going to happen? Who knows John Hagee out of San Antonio? Anybody follow John Hagee, the writer? New Jerusalem? You're going to have a whole bunch of evangelical Christians pitch an ever-loving fit if they give up a piece of land. Why? Because God promised that land to Israel. And to give it up, God will turn his back on the Israeli people or the Jewish people. If he turns his back on the Jewish people, the Jesus will come back and it will be the end of times. In other words, it all ties to their eschatology, their belief in how the world will end. And for them to give up land would bring about, it would be an abomination to God, it would be a sin against them, and it wouldn't be a good thing. Who else? Jews in New York, rich Jews. And I hope you're not putting this on, I'm telling you, I'm giving my honest views now. And I'm getting this from talking to Israeli security agents that prevent 13 attacks per day in their country. 13 per day they prevent. And they told us, if your New York Jewish people, if your evangelical people would just leave us alone, we could work this out on our own. But we have so many outside influences that we can't. We can't. We have too much pressure from the outside that we can't. And they gave us so many examples of how they work peacefully. Does there have to be a Palestinian homeland? Does there have to be a Kurdistan? Does there have to be an Indian nation? Does there have to be, what about free Quebec? You know, you can go on and on and on in deciding what group of people deserves statehood, and there is no right answer. There is, you know, should America, do we deserve statehood? Look what we did. We decimated a race of people to get this. We took it by force. So a writer, and there's a book I would encourage everyone to read. I spent a lot of time in the Balkans. And it's called Balkan Ghosts. That is one of the most fascinating, easy to read books that will give you such a better understanding of the area from Romania to the northwest or southeastern Europe, all the way down to Lebanon. It's fascinating. It's set in 1990. And this guy named Kaplan, who was a Greek Jew, not very many of them, who was a Greek Jew, wrote this book. And he said something very profound. And that was that each and every culture views their rightful place in the world as where they were when they were at their best. Follow me? Greece, they should be, their rightful place in the world is when they controlled all of Asia Minor, all the east right down there, all the way down to Alexandria in northern Egypt. Turkey, there should be the whole Ottoman Empire, which goes all through there. You know, every group. Israel, well, when they covered everything from the Jordan River all the way north, up close to Damascus, all the way down to Egypt. Every group thinks that should be theirs. But should it be? I don't think so. I don't think so necessarily. But I'm raising these questions because they're questions that affect the world. They affect foreign policy, what President Obama is going to do in the Middle East, what he's going to do about the bomb if Iran gets the bomb. What's he going to do? You know? I have people here in Huntsville tell me all the time they deserve the bomb. They deserve it. I think, you've got to be kidding me. You know, you want to put a bomb in the hand of those nuts? And I say that lovingly because I know a lot of Iranians call somebody nuts lovely. I'm actually a Farsi speaker, I didn't mention that, and I deal with Iranians all the time, and which is why I ended up in Afghanistan. If you go to Afghanistan and you talk to a person on the street and say, "Are you Afghan?" What's an Afghan? They don't know what an Afghan is. I'm a Pashtun. I'm a Panjshiri. I'm a, what other groups are in there? All these different, I'm Haredi. I'm all these ethnic groups. They're living in this land we have called Afghanistan, that the United Kingdom has made into Afghanistan, that they don't recognize. That's why you have so many problems on the Pakistani-Afghan border. Who are all those people? They're all Pashtuns. They speak the same language, they look alike, they talk alike. The border means nothing to them. The border is a Western concept. It's not in their mindset. So that's my next question. We should have Pashtunistan. You know, that's 60% of Afghanistan is Pashtun, including the Harzai. And a lot of them think they should have their own homeland. So what does that mean for the U.S.? It's a complicated world out there. It's complicated as far as foreign policy. It's complicated when Barack Obama doesn't meet with the Dalai Lama one week and gets the Nobel Peace Prize the next. I did hear he was going to get the Peace Prize for Literature. There's a book he's thinking about writing. But, no, that's just joking. Don't put that.
That's on tape, right?
Everything's
on tape.
Everything's on tape. But anyway, no, many of things he's done, I think he's done right. But any questions about any of this? I know I'm ranting a little bit because I've wanted to rant about this for a while. I've had this pinned up, and I thought, wait a minute. You know, I've been over to Israel. I've seen what it's like. I've been to Lebanon. Go ahead, Tony.
Since you said that our media does not show so many things that you know go on because you're a guy that went over there and are privileged to see many things. Are you also saying with that that we are being controlled by our media?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question. There are things, they are so selective on what they will show. I see it on a local level. I see things happening in Huntsville that should make the news, that don't make the news. I lived in Houston for a long time. There are things that should be reported that aren't. And I get amazed at that. But in Israel, it would not be good politically correct to show Jews and Arabs getting along. It's not good for the rest of the world. It's not good for our negotiations trying to twist Israel's arm. You know, I think that's only going to lead to something bad. I wish they would report it that way. You know, Israel and Palestine could live together peacefully. There's a brewing problem there. There's a problem that's rising there. And Israel's going to have to make peace. Israel's going to have to give up land. You know, any idea why? Why must they do it in the next 20 years? Any suggestions, any thoughts?
Well, they've sort of created a ghetto. I mean, the Palestinians really live in a big ghetto, and it was created by Israel.
Okay, look at the country of Lebanon. In Lebanon, you don't have one country, you have three countries. You have a Sunni country, you have a Shia country, and you have a Christian country. The president must be Christian, like the Constitution. The prime minister must be Sunni, the speaker of the parliament must be Shia. That was based on the 1930 census. Do you think that census has changed? What do you think the mix is now?
Muslims.
What are the Muslims doing that the Christians aren't doing? They're making lots of more Muslims. The birth rate in Israel right now is 7.4 Muslim babies for every 1.8 Jewish babies. Do the math. Project that out 20, 30, 40 years. What are you going to have? You're going to have a Muslim-dominated area. So Israel, for their own self-interest, they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to settle. They're going to have to divide it and be done with it. Yes, sir.
I find your comments exceedingly interesting.
Well, thank you.
But,
okay.
You know, the Jews are really making life miserable.
I agree with you.
But just making life miserable.
Right.
And they do it by power, by the United States resources that come over there, etc.
Right.
I cannot see where the sensitivity to a human being shouldn't prevail, and thus give see that the same enjoyment out of life comes to the Palestinians.
Right.
That to do with Israel. I'm not concerned one on hold about whether you're an Israelite or a Palestinian.
Right.
You know, but the only thing you said that really does surprise me is that nobody likes the Palestinians. I've not heard that. That doesn't mean that hasn't different, but I've not heard that.
Right.
Nobody likes somebody that's fighting all the time, and they're reacting to the treatment. The Jews didn't live in that area. Only there was few of them lived in there for centuries. Centuries. All sorts of Syrians, Romans. The Jews were just a minor. I'm not.
No, please, you're making a
very good land. That's wonderful.
I feel like I'm talking to my wife. Go ahead. She makes the same arguments. Let me ask you this: what's Jordan's population? What's the percentage of population of the country of Jordan? 60% Palestinian. You could argue they have a homeland. It's called Jordan. And I think you're right.
This large area that's intertwined with what Israel claims is their.
Right. Okay, let me ask you this question. Since most of those Israelis are displaced, they came from somewhere else.
Yeah.
Let's look at the surrounding countries. Look at Lebanon and the refugee camps they have in Lebanon. Look at Saudi Arabia. Look at Iran. Look at every surrounding country that's yelling for these people to have a homeland. Show me one of them that will give them a passport. Not one will give them a passport. Why? Because they don't want them. The Saudis will not give them a passport. If you're born in Lebanon, I'm sorry, Tony, I'm going to block this off right here. If you're born in Lebanon and you're a Palestinian, ethnic Palestinian, you get a piece of paper that says it's your Palestinian passport.
Problem when you have such widespread discrimination against the Palestinian people by other countries, but yet Israel takes all of the flack because they're the most vocal. They retaliate when somebody throws I once threw a rock across a hedge at my next door neighbor, and it hit her in the head, and then her three brothers came looking. You know, that's you know, I shouldn't have thrown the rock, but then I didn't know the three brothers were coming.
The force retaliation. I'm with you. I agree. They should have a place. They should not be mistreated. It's everywhere. The mistreatment of people is everywhere.
That is one of the genius of the problem is that they're using this disagreement between the Palestinian Jews because of their antagonism with the United States.
That's exactly what it is. It's to get at us.
And Mr. McDonald had a question.
As I see it, the whole area over there is overpopulated and getting worse. Is the place capable of supporting that many people? And the bigger question is, what's your proposed solution to try to work your way out of this mess?
With Israel, I can tell you my solution. You divide it by the land. You take Jerusalem, put a fence around it, make it a UN-controlled city, demilitarize it, and have it a city of the world that belongs to the world. That's my solution to it. It's already segregated. It's already divided, except in the north. It's already divided into Palestinian communities, Jewish communities. In the settlements, get rid of those settlements, absolutely. But the land's already divided. Let them have their citizenship where they stand, make Jerusalem an international city, and be done with it. That's my solution.
Can you be done with it if they start shooting at each other?
Well, if they start shooting at each other, what's going to be their gripe? They have full access to Jerusalem. That's a big issue for both. The Temple Mount, Al-Aqsa, they have full access. Anybody can go there.
Why does the media keep censorship and not tell us the truth of it? What's to prevent them from doing it? Who's telling the media not to tell the truth?
I think that is I didn't want to say it, but I think it's influential Jews that want to keep the Palestinians down. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, and there's nothing sensational about friendship anyhow.
Exactly. There's nothing sensational. But can they get along? Absolutely. Best friends we had in Greece were Palestinian Christian. Palestinian Christian. And I'm going to see them soon in Oman. So, but didn't talk about Afghanistan. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, do.
Yeah, I want you to tell that, at least that one story and about the lady you helped. And
okay.
You and your 6 people that you got there and they bombed the place. Go ahead and tell that.
Okay,
and feel free to ask any question.
Feel free. I don't want to keep anybody's time. I'm not on schedule, so.
No, that's okay.
No, I did go to Afghanistan because I do speak Farsi and a Dowdy dialect. It's like somebody from Boston coming here, and so it was kind of tough. But I got into Kabul January 14th of 2008. I was pulled off to start a team with 5 other people to track down the bomb makers, because Kabul had just become completely unsafe. And so they were, the FBI does have a presence in Afghanistan. We're there to go along with the military. The military is great at killing people, but they're not great at collecting SIM cards out of phones and doing the analysis, putting it all together. So, and taking fingerprints and biometrics of all these people. So that's what the FBI's role was, to, after the military hits a place, to go in and take the relevant data. Do the analysis, do the homework, of the paperwork. You know, not many SEALs can, do that. You know, they write like this. Sorry if you're a SEAL, or if you're Navy, I apologize. But that was our role, and that's what I thought I was going for. Well, I got pulled out of the training and said, "We want you to be on a special team." So I go to Afghanistan, and I start working with the Taliban. But that's later. I can tell you stories about that, and some good ones. But that night I got there, we were sitting down to chow about 6 o'clock. We heard bombs start going off, and there's a Serena Hotel, it's a Western hotel, about 2 kilometers away. We knew it was under attack, so the 6 of us threw our gear on, got in the vehicle and charged it, and we charged right into the thick of things, and I'll speed this up. There was a lot of carnage when we got there. It was pitch black dark. There was a lot of carnage. We still had at least 1 terrorist in the building, and some things that's been real. I'll admit to you now, these trips do not come without baggage. You know, I will leave the bureau because of mileage before I will time. You know, not so much late model, but high mileage. But one thing I did have to do was, do you let the young lady that's lying here bleeding to death, do you stop her bleeding, or do you go inside to face the shooting? Well, I did. I went inside, and she did pass away, and that's been very difficult. But when I did get inside, a lot of people were dead. A lot of people were scared. We didn't know what had happened. We eventually found the remaining surviving suicide bomber, got him, arrested him, got him out of there. His intention was, there were only 2 bombers, there were only 2 attackers, and we didn't know that. They had military uniforms on with vests underneath. Their job was to go in and shoot everyone. When we got there along with the military, walk out into the middle of us and click the button and kill us all. One of the men got killed in the parking lot and blew himself up in the parking lot. One of the men was still inside. So we got in there with him, and I could see him wandering around, and he was trying to get his vest back on. So we all charged him, grabbed him, and because I'm a linguist, and these were all Afghan National Army people, I had a beard at the time. I was able to look like we say Haji, that's slur, look like a Haji and wrap it up and get over to him, see what they were asking him. He was making up stories. But he looked over at me in my eyes, and I could see that he was stoned. So I knew immediately he was a bomber. Because that's one thing they do, is they juice them up on drugs before they send them in. So there's no second thoughts. And I would love to do a class sometime on martyrdom. That's a fascinating story for me.